Hello guys, Charles here and welcome back to my channel. In today's video I want to discuss the continuous scale exercise, its strengths and weaknesses, and what I believe to be a far superior alternative. If you've found the continuous scale exercise to be useful, then please continue using it. Don't worry about what some guy on the internet with a weird guitar thinks about it. Stick with it if it's working for you. These are simply my views and thoughts on the subject. The continuous scale exercise is outlined in many jazz books and methods. To put it simply, we attempt to play a continuous line of scalular notes over a chord progression, changing as seamlessly as possible from one scale to another where necessary, and changing direction once we've run out of range on our instrument. For example, if I needed 2 bars of F major, 2 bars of B flat major, and 2 bars of E flat major, it would be a strange piece of music, but that exercise would look like this. F major, and at that point I'd consider changing direction. So there's many advantages to the continuous scale exercises, including it really increases our fretboard knowledge, as we might start up here and need to move from F to B flat at this point, and we need to know where that lives. In doing so, we're increasing our scale confidence, as well as our confidence with the key centers of a certain song. So it really helps with song memorization. And also it's a really accessible exercise where as soon as you know your scales, you can start to work on your continuous scale exercise, as all it requires is your knowledge of scales. So what could be wrong with the continuous scale exercise? Well, 3 things come to mind. Firstly, I've never heard any elite level player saying that the continuous scale exercise was the holy grail that they used to develop their skills. If you have heard any elite level players talking about the continuous scale exercise, please link me down below. I'd love to look into that because it's not something I've ever seen. Secondly, once you can do the continuous scale exercise, you can do the continuous scale exercise. What I mean by that is that its value decreases over time. Although it's a great exercise at first, which is probably why it's mentioned in many of these methods which are often aimed at beginners, the benefits of the exercise can be short-lasting. And the biggest issue for me is that it doesn't really sound very good, and it doesn't provide us with much musical inspiration. It's not really giving us any useful musical material, and personally, as I've discussed before on this channel, I've stopped practicing anything which I wouldn't play at a gig, and I can't really see myself playing a continuous scale exercise on a song. So I'd recommend that you give the continuous scale exercise a go and see what you think of it. Like I say, those are only my thoughts on the exercise. It's not something I've ever seen myself feeling the need for. However, I believe there is a far superior alternative to the continuous scale exercise, which will provide all of the same benefits, as well as being endorsed by players such as Sonny Rollins, Joel Frahm, Michael Brecker, and Chris Potter, to name but a few. And that alternative is building directional vocabulary. What that means is that we will compose interesting phrases which primarily travel in one direction. And once we run out of fretboard real estate, we'll head back in the opposite direction. Now, because all of us find creating vocabulary a daunting task, we're going to follow a variation on the approach that we used in my Generate Infinite Vocabulary video, which you can see in the top right up here. This means that much of the phrase will be drawn from the song's melody as a framework. This is the Peter Bernstein approach, stick to the melody as much as possible. And this means that we've got far fewer notes to have to add in ourselves, and when we do create a phrase, it's going to fit in and suit the piece well because it actually has the melody hidden in there somewhere. So for this example, we're going to use the first 8 bars of All the Things You Are, the melody of which sounds like this. So we're in the key of A flat major, and the phrase ends in the key of C major. So the first step is to add this sense of direction to the melody notes. I want to head in a downwards direction for this phrase, so every time a note goes up in the melody, I'm going to drop it by an octave, meaning that each melody change takes us lower and lower on the neck. Doing this is going to take up much of the range of the instrument, which is, remember, exactly what we're aiming for with that fretboard confidence. So hopefully you can still hear the melody there, but we're getting lower and lower and lower with every note change. Finally, we're going to decorate between those new target melody notes with mostly eighth notes or quavers, as this is jazz. Each phrase can have its own sense of contour, the ups and downs, as long as it ends on the upcoming melody note in a satisfying and musical fashion. I've used simple concepts such as scales, passing notes, enclosures and arpeggios to create my phrases, and you should use any approaches or concepts which you want to internalise in your own playing. So let's break down what I've done in a bit more detail. So my first challenge is to simply create an interesting bar, because I need to start on A flat and I need to start the next bar on D flat. So as long as my phrase travels in a generally downwards direction, I'm going to get there. So I've gone for this phrase. So very simple little scalar line there. Remember, I'm in the key of A flat major here, so I'm sticking completely diatonically for that phrase, and I've put a little trill in there just to break up the rhythm a little bit. And that phrase resolves nicely. Nothing special, but I've now got a little cell which I can improvise with, and I'm confident with that little bit of the fretboard. So the next bar in the song is over a B flat minor chord. So I've just got to go from this D flat to this A flat and start the next bar on a G. As long as I get to the A flat by beat 4 and the G by the start of the next bar, then my phrase is a success. And the chord here is B flat minor. So I'm outlining B flat minor ideas with a bit of chromaticism here. So I'm finishing that bar with an enclosure or an encirclement. 13, 11, 12 to get me to the next bar, and I started the bar with just a descending chromatic line. Nothing special, but a nice little phrase. Resolves nicely. So the next bar is all G, so I can pretty much do whatever I want in this bar. It's also an E flat 7 chord, so I've got a bit more leeway with it being a dominant tonality. However, I've not done anything too outrageous here, but I've made it a little bit more rhythmically interesting. As you can see, we've got a couple of triplets here. And again, that phrase there, although I'm ending on a G flat, I'm about to rise up to another G. So it's another kind of encirclement. It's a flat 9 there, major 7 to encircle the E flat. G flat there, or an F sharp, and again that's an encirclement to take me up to G. Lovely little phrase there, moving me to the next bar where I've got to go from a G to a C to another G. That's what I'm aiming for. So my harmony in this bar is A flat major 7, so I've got a little descending arpeggio from the 7th here, G, E flat, C. The second, and then a little bit of chromaticism here, flat 2, which is a bit unusual on an A flat chord. But I just wanted to add a little bit of cheek there, and then I've got a little trill from the 2 to the 3 to the major 7. And I've hit that G, that's the melody note there. And I've hit that G a little bit late, which is a bit cheeky of me, but it's on the and of 4 rather than perfectly on the 4, but it's close enough, and I wanted to put that little trill in there. So I'm going to give myself that. You can deduct points from me if you like, that's absolutely fine. I then slide down to F here on the 8th fret, which is the 3rd degree of our D flat major chord. A triplet to start with a doubled note. So that double note puts me in a new position, and it gives me that slightly modern saxophone false harmonic sound, or false fingering, whatever you call it. Quite a nice little windy line there. I've still landed back on F for the first beat of the next bar, which was my target melody note. And then in this dominant bar here, we've got a -7 flat 5 chord, D -7 flat 5, to a G7 altered, to taking us eventually to C major. But this bar's got the 2 and the 5 in, so it can be, as we've talked about in our Spicy 251 video up here, you can pretty much get away with musical murder on this one. So if I talk about this in terms of G7, we've got the 7th, the flat 3, or the sharp 9, up to the 3, a little triplet here again, which is 3, 5, flat 9. I then use the open string, again that gives us a slightly more modern sound, which is the root there of the G. 4 gives us the sharp 11 or the flat 5 on the A string. The 3rd, a fast triplet up to the flat 9, and then dropping down to the open E string, which is the 3rd, where in the last 2 bars here, this is just a C major chord. I wanted to add a flat 6 to this because it gives it a slightly more modern sound, so I just went for basically a C major 7 flat 6 arpeggio. We're having to change direction now because we've got right to the bottom. That would take me up to that E flat at that point, if I was carrying on to a C minor chord. So I hope you found that one useful, guys. The only benefit of the continuous scale exercise which this alternative doesn't quite satisfy is the accessibility. However, I believe that once you've got a basic understanding of chord scale relationships, you should move on to building your own simple vocabulary as soon as possible. Always ensure that you're building lines that sound like the player that you would like to become. By building lines and lines of vocabulary each week using approaches and techniques that you haven't quite got down in your playing yet, but you want to internalise, they will eventually come out in your playing as the months and years pass. Remember that it apparently took Brecker 6 months to internalise his own phrases, so we can reasonably expect that it would take considerably longer for us peasants. Did you guys ever use the continuous scale exercise? What do you think? Or do you know of any top players who did use this exercise? Please let me know down below. Please also give this video a like, subscribe, ding that notification bell, otherwise you'll not get notified when I upload a new video, and share this with any of your friends who might appreciate the discussion we've had today. And as always, I hope you're all doing very well, getting plenty of practice in, and I very much look forward to seeing you in the next one. Cheers.
Roll up, let me embed a story you'll never forget. A drip, drip, drowning in debt now. You can't buy your way out. And